What's up, everybody? Welcome to the SGN Podcast. I'm your host, Eagle Call, and unfortunately, this episode is coming out very late because I've been extremely busy over the past few days, and it doesn't look like it's going to get any better, unfortunately, in terms of my timetable. But tomorrow I'm off. I don't have to work tomorrow, so I'm going to spam as many episodes as I can in regards of E3 2019 because I still want to do this episode, which I'm, of course, doing right now. I still want to do my top 10 top 10 games from E3 2019. And, of course, I want to do also the worst 10 games from E3. So all that stuff will be coming out in the next few days. So stay tuned for that if you are interested, of course. If you're not, then that's okay. But regardless, we'll go ahead and get into this episode, which is going to be who won E3 2019. Well, let me go ahead and tell you who did not win, and that's the fans. And, of course, that's kind of cliche or something like that. Like, whenever something's boring, of course, you always go say the fans didn't win. Well, it's the truth, to be honest with you guys, because as gamers, we come into E3, we're always hoping to see some gameplay and some just really badass stuff from especially the major companies, whether it's Microsoft, Sony, I guess Nintendo for Nintendo fans, and of course some of the game developers. Unfortunately, this E3 didn't really hit the high notes that we've seen over the past few years, and I think that a lot of it is because, of course, Sony isn't there anymore. Sony are doing their own thing, which means that Microsoft didn't really have to go out there and blow everybody out of the water. Sony, of course, not being there, didn't have to do the same thing, so we had a lot less high-quality Sony games, because let's just be real, their exclusives are the best, their exclusives are the biggest hitters. Presumably, we would have seen more of The Last of Us 2, we would have seen, who knows how, what else that we'll probably be seeing at their own press conference, whenever that is. So, unfortunately, Microsoft didn't do their best. They just kind of went out there and they coasted. Square Enix, I've been seeing a lot of people saying that was the best conference, but that's also kind of subjective because for me that was the worst one because it was all JRPGs, which I just don't like. I saw some people say Ubisoft was the best and stuff like that, but if I'm being completely honest, it was, regardless of who won, it was a very, very boring E3. It wasn't good at all. Microsoft had some good stuff. They pretty much all had one or two good things. If I'm talking about what was arguably the best thing for me, I think maybe it was Game Pass Ultimate, and that's not even a game, which is what everybody wants to see. It's fine to show off some cool subscription services, some cool new upgrades to software and stuff like that. But what we all want to see, or new consoles too, but we all want to see really is upcoming games. And we didn't really see that from really anybody. Everything is probably going to is more or less coming out in 2020. And the games that are upcoming, we pretty much, in the next few months, we pretty much only saw some little trailers. We didn't see any gameplay of it. So that was pretty disappointing. But let's go ahead and say my worst to favorite. From least favorite to favorite conferences from E3 2019. And of course, I'm not counting Nintendo because I didn't watch it because I don't give a shit about Nintendo. So they're not really classified. I've heard that it was a pretty good one, but I don't like any of their games. I don't like their way their company works. I don't like pretty much anything about Nintendo, so I didn't watch it, so I'm not going to count them. At the worst, I have to say, is of course Square Enix. Now, like I said, a lot of people have been saying that Square Enix actually had the best conference, that it was very good. Yes, they showed a lot of gameplay, so I do give them props for that. But the issue for me was that they were all JRPGs, and there was 4 Final Fantasy games announced. I think 3 of them were actually remasters. The other one was an expansion for Final Fantasy Online. So I was just listen, none of this stuff is actually doing anything for me. What else did they talk about? They talked about one game that I actually really like. That's right, they talked about the Avengers game, which I've actually been seeing some people say that it's not going to be good or something like that. So maybe some people have some inside information that it looks like it's not going to be any good. But I don't know. Based on what I saw, I'm enthusiastic and I'm excited. So I will say, that was a pretty solid one. That announcement right there was pretty damn good. They showed a bunch of other stuff, but like I said, it was pretty much all JRPGs, and that just doesn't really do anything for me. So for me, it was a big miss. I think I give it a 4 overall. Which, of course, compared to other E3s, probably would have been a 2 or a 3. But considering the general quality of this E3, I gave it a 4 because, everything else was pretty shit too. So I think that Square Enix, they're great if you're a fan of that genre. But if you aren't, then it's going to be a big shit show, and that's what it was for me. So definitely the worst one for me was Square Enix. The next to last, which I think is 4th, because let's see, it was, I think it's basically 5. Because let's see, it was Microsoft. This isn't my necessarily order. There was Microsoft, Square Enix, EA, Ubisoft, Bethesda, and Hold on, let me recount this. I'm a fucking retard. Hold on. I can't even count. I count this from 4 to 6. So there's Microsoft, there's Square Enix, there's Ubisoft, there's Bethesda, there's Nintendo. Is that it? I went to 6 again after 4. Yeah, I think that might be it. Anyway, whatever. I'm just gonna leave this in because it's embarrassing. Regardless, after the next one after that, I do have to put in EA's conference, or EA Play, I think is what they call it. I mean, only because they showed some stuff that I'm interested in. Now, let me explain. I'm a huge FIFA player. I'm extremely pissed off right now at FIFA because, of course, it's the weekend league. It's the last weekend league that actually going to be interesting because the ultimate team of the season comes out this week, which means there's going to be 23 players that are the best players from all of the teams of the seasons that have come out so far. And of course, everybody's going to be playing the weekend league because they want one of those great players, or they want two, depending on where you finish. I generally finish in gold 3, which means I get 2 of them. So of course, I'm a little bit extra motivated to play. But for some reason today, the gameplay is just extremely bad, and it's just really, really pissing me off. For the first time in probably 6 or 7 years since I was a dumbass, I had the urge to just throw my controller against the fucking wall or against the damn TV. Luckily, I managed to keep a level head, and I just said, I'm just done. I'm going to take a little bit of a break, and I went to do something else. So, thankfully, I kept a level head because I'm not an idiot. So, for the first time, I was extremely pissed off. So, regardless, FIFA pisses me off regularly, and yet I'm still such an idiot that I fucking play the game just like all of us FIFA players do. So, of course, them talking about FIFA, I was interested, but then they showed off that it was pretty much only Volta stuff, which is the new FIFA Street mode, and that really doesn't interest me anyway whatsoever. But they did have Rio Ferdinand, which kept me entertained. So I guess you could say an insight into the culture of street football across the world was a bit more interesting than the actual mode itself. So I did appreciate that a little bit, even though I wasn't too enthusiastic about seeing that stuff. And then they did talk about a few improvements that are coming, which on paper are very, very welcome. Whether or not they will be good in the actual game itself remains to be seen. I don't have any faith, but I guess we have to kind of give them the benefit of the doubt in some ways. I don't really have faith in them, but for the sake of this, I will say, I was at least interested. Then, of course, they talked about what was arguably the best thing among the main single player games was definitely the new Star Wars game. I think it was the last, what was it called? The Fallen Jedi or something like that. I think it looks great. So far what we've seen from gameplay, from graphics, from we haven't really seen anything about the story, but the fact that it's a canon Star Wars game that's developed by Respawn Studios and that's going to be completely single player only, at least so far, is very, very encouraging. I'm very excited about this game. It looked great, and that kind of made the conference for me. And then, of course, they talked about Battlefield 5, and they talked about, which is a game I've been playing a lot recently, how they're finally adding the U.S. and Japan to the Pacific front. A lot of new maps, of course, also some new maps for the European front as well. The only issue for me is that, yes, they added Mercury recently, which is a brand new map, and it looks beautiful, but the map itself is pure garbage. So I'm worried that a lot of these new maps are going to be having the same issues, where they're going to look beautiful, but they're going to be awful to play on with terrible spawns, even worse than the main game's maps, which was already atrocious. So, I mean, if they can fix the spawn issues, if they can make maps that are fun to play on, that don't have these kind of issues, of course, then the game is great, because the gameplay is really, really good. The gameplay is really, really good, and it's really fun to play, except for when you have these just terrible spawns, and it really makes you fucking rage, which is just classic for EA games, I guess you could say. So, of course, they also talked about Apex Legends, which didn't interest me, so I skipped it. Same thing with Madden, and I think there was one, and they also talked about The Sims 4, which I completely skipped that too. So, this conference, for me personally, was better than Square Enix, not because the games they showed, except for Star Wars, are necessarily great, but it was just because the games they showed they fit my interest. They fit the genres that I like, whereas Square Enix was just a massive failure in terms of my personal taste. Next up, we have Ubisoft. Next up, we have Bethesda. Bethesda was definitely a pretty garbage conference in a lot of ways, because I was hoping to see something about Starfield. I was hoping to see something about Elder Scrolls, but unfortunately, they didn't talk about them. They kind of only just mentioned them for a second, and for the most part, they only talked about some upcoming games that, yes, look okay, but for the most part, don't look amazing. For example, Doom Eternal was definitely the highlight of that conference, which is a game that I've pretty much been open about, whether it's my friends or with the episode I did all about the Bethesda conference. I was pretty open about the fact that I don't necessarily love Doom 2016. Now, I have tried playing it again. I played for about 45 minutes of the day, and I was enjoying it a lot more because I figured, you know what, listen, I'm going to play this the way that everybody says you're supposed to. Just go balls to the wall, enjoying the music, and just go for it instead of trying to be a little bit more tactical and stuff like that, because that's not the way the Doom games are played. And so at the end of the day, you have to play it the right way, and playing it that way, I enjoyed it a lot more. So hopefully I will be able to get into it a little bit more. I do intend on maybe streaming it in the next few days, so definitely stay tuned to that. I will leave the link in the description down below. So I will probably be playing that, and of course Metro Exodus. But regardless, this game does look great. I like the fact they're expanding on it with having heaven, hell, and possibly even some Earth segments. So they are expanding on it in a pretty big way, and it looks really interesting. Then, of course, they talked about all the big mishaps they had with Fallout 76, which was a big disappointment for me because I was really looking forward to that game. They announced that there's going to be a lot more NPCs in there, finally, human NPCs to actually have some story-driven stuff. They announced the fact that there's going to be a new Battle Royale mode, which doesn't interest me at all, but regardless, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people playing that, so I guess for the sake of the game, it's good, but for the sake of the player base, for people like me, I would have preferred them to be spending those resources on actually making an interesting story and an interesting game itself to play. But I will be jumping into that soon, so probably that alongside Metro and Doom will be coming to the channel for the summer, so hopefully you guys will tune into that. Like I said, the link will be in the description down below. And they also talked about a few other things. Like they talked about some Rage maps, but I don't really see Rage as a game that I would like to play. Like, it looks okay. It looks like it's probably fun, but nothing particularly special. And I have so many games to play that there's really just nothing for me nothing to drive me to spend the money. They also talked about, I think there's one other thing. Oh yeah, that's right. They talked a bunch about the mobile game Elder Scrolls Blades. Fucking trash. I don't give a shit about that. So, I mean, yeah, just fuck mobile games in general. So, Bethesda's conference, they talked about some series that I like. They did disappoint me in big ways, but overall, I think it was definitely better than EA, and it was definitely better than Square Enix for me personally. Number 2, we have Ubisoft. Ubisoft, they have been making some okay games lately. Like they've been kind of making a comeback with the Assassin's Creed series, with Origins and with Odyssey. I haven't played either one of them, but based on what I've heard, they are definitely big steps in the right direction compared to the recent ones. I don't have any intention of playing the new game that they announced that is made by the team that developed the original Assassin's Creed, which is like Monsters and Gods or Gods and Monsters, something like that, which to me looks like a huge ripoff of Zelda Breath of the Wild, so definitely not something that particularly interests me. But they did show off the new Ghost Recon game, which I think they call it the Breaking Point, something like that, and they have, of course, John Bernthal, so I'm going to be very, very interested in playing that game. Ghost Recon is by far my favorite series in the Tom Clancy universe. I think alongside Splinter Cell, it's definitely my number 1, and then Splinter Cell is number 2. So I'm looking forward to playing it. It looks really interesting, and yeah, I'm just looking forward to giving that one a try. We don't know too much about it, but it looks like it's going to be like a survival type of game, which could be a hit, could be a miss as well. Those kind of are either hit and miss generally. So I'm interested in seeing that one, and definitely getting my hands on it. And then, of course, they talked about the big one, Watch Dogs. Watch Dogs, I think it's called Watch Dog Legion or something like that. It looks really, really good, where basically you can play as anybody throughout the entire population of London, with all of them having unique skills. And hopefully, it will be a good game. Of course, with something so ambitious, it could be great, but it could also be a massive failure. But I will give them kudos for trying something out of this magnitude. You know what I mean? Like, having so many playable characters in a game, it's really insane. So if it works out the way that it looks like it could, then it's going to be a fucking phenomenal game. If, unfortunately, they kind of lie to us like they have in the past, then that'll, of course, be an issue. And I think that people will pretty much be done with the Watch Dogs series. But I'm looking forward to it. This is probably the best game they showed in terms of potential. Like, in terms of potential, by far the best game shown at E3, in my opinion. So, or at least of that, something that we've actually seen gameplay of. So, I'm looking forward to that one, and I guess you could say that Ubisoft kind of blew me away with that one a little bit. And yeah, I was just surprised, and I'm looking forward to giving that one an opportunity once it eventually comes out. I think they said it's like early 2020. So hopefully it will be what they say, and not a bold-faced lie like they did with Watch Dogs 1, which basically, if you don't know, they they basically said like they showed trailers and this is the graphics, this is what the game looks like, this is what you can do in the game, and unfortunately it just simply was not what they promised, and it was a major failure. Everybody was pissed off at them, and from then on, Ubisoft, which has already had kind of a poor track record of as of late with some of the shit games they talked about, or some of the shit games they've produced, I should say. That was definitely a big mishap once again. But regardless, I'm giving them faith with this game because the ambition is very, very strong and the idea is great. It's just a matter of how the execution will be. But like I said, I'm gonna give them an opportunity to impress me and for the first time buy a Watch Dogs game. And of course, number one has to be for me personally, Microsoft with Xbox E3 2019. And like I said, that's not necessarily because it was a great conference. It was just because everything else was kind of just meh. And of course, theirs was also just kind of meh. There was nothing really special about it. But what I did like about it, of course, like I said earlier, was the fact that they talked about the new Game Pass Ultimate, which is a great deal if you're just an Xbox gamer in general, and really if you're a PC gamer as well, because if you get Xbox Ultimate, you get over 100 and something games on Xbox One, you get over 100 and something games on PC, and of course you get included in the price Xbox Gold. So you're saving a bunch of money. I did the calculation, like just on the subscription itself, I'll be saving like $30 a year, which is already pretty fucking good. And then of course the fact that I'll be saving money on say Gears 5, Halo Infinite, I'll be saving money on all the Forza series, which I pretty much always buy them, and be saving money on all the Xbox exclusives, which to be honest haven't been great, but there are a lot of games that are going to be coming from great studios that Xbox have recently acquired. So you can expect to see a lot more use of Game Pass. And of course, there are some really, really good games that I haven't played, like Metal Gear Phantom Pain. There's Senua's Blade. They have a bunch of other stuff on there. That of course, Metro Exodus, which for me was something I was going to buy regardless, and to see it on there for Game Pass, it's just awesome for me to see. So I need to jump on that immediately and play it as soon as possible before they take it out, if they do take it out. So definitely, like Game Pass for me is a phenomenal deal, and of course with the fact that gold is included, it's just excellent. It really is excellent. So it's great for gamers on console, it's great for gamers on PC, and it's just great for gamers in general. And it's no surprise to see that all these other companies like Ubisoft, which of course they did not introduce their new Ubisoft Play Plus, or Uplay Plus, I think is what it's called. So a lot of these companies are announcing these subscription services, much like Game Pass, but I think that Game Pass is by far the best one. So because you get so much variety, and it's an always developing catalog. So it's a great thing to see, and I'm just very, very happy with Ultimate right now. And of course they introduced the new Xbox Scarlet, which we haven't really seen much of, but allegedly it's going to be the most powerful console in the world, which they always say with the new console coming out. So of course, anytime a new console is coming out, I am very excited when it's a new generation, I should say, not necessarily upgrades over the current hardware. But I'm excited to see what they can do with Scarlet. The new xCloud looks really interesting, where you can play your games anywhere, just downloading it off the cloud. So I'm very excited about that as well. And so I was very excited about the new hardware and the new stuff when it comes to the technological point of view that they announced. And of course, they showed off some Gears, which didn't really have any gameplay. But they did tease the new mode, which kind of looks interesting, but I'm kind of iffy on that. I'm not a big fan of that type of mode. So once I get my hands on it, I'll be a lot more decisive whether I like it or not. And then of course, they talked about Halo Infinite, which looks phenomenal, at least from a graphical point of view. And I'm very, very excited about that. Halo is always going to be a big hitter for Microsoft, and the fact that it's going to be a launch title for the Xbox Scarlet, it's just great news, and I'm excited about that. I'm very, very, very excited about that. And of course, they talked about a lot of the indie games, like Ori and some of the more artistic ones. The fact they're backing a lot of indie developers, and so they showed a lot of games, none of which were a lot of gameplay type of stuff. But what they did show was, of course, looking like some pretty good games. And one game that I'm really, really excited about, of course, is the new Obsidian game. Other Worlds, I think is what it's called. And it's basically like a Fallout type of style game, but based in a futuristic type of thing. So I'm looking forward to that one. It's going to be on Game Pass as soon as it launches. So I'm excited to try that game out. And just overall, I think that Microsoft, with me being a guy who has had Microsoft game consoles for the last two generations, and who is a big fan of Microsoft exclusives, at least the classic ones that have actually, still been pretty good, Halo and Gears, then of course I want to be excited about that. But I would be honest, like if there had been another big hitter, I would have definitely given somebody else the win. But unfortunately, what we saw from all the conferences was pretty shit, and nothing was too insane. I'm kind of having a little bit of a blank right now as of what else Microsoft talked about. I have it right here. Let me take a look. Oh, that's right. They talked about Cyberpunk. That's by far the biggest thing, is they talked about Cyberpunk with, of course, Keanu Reeves. The game looks phenomenal. The story looks phenomenal. Based on what people have been saying that saw it backstage or had like a 50-minute, I think, demo, it looks fucking phenomenal. So I'm extremely excited about that. Just extremely excited about that. They talked about the new Xbox controller, which looks great in terms of what it can do, but the price was like $150, just way too much. Way too much. No, $180, excuse me. Just way too much, so fuck that. They talked about the new game, Elden Ring, which is a From Software game, so of course the makers of Dark Souls and stuff like that. And it's going to be co-written with George R.R. Martin, which if you don't know who that is the writer of the phenomenal Game of Thrones series, not the TV series, the books. So, something that's actually fucking phenomenal from season 4 on. Talked about Ori. They did show some Star Wars stuff, Fallen Order, which is of course the game that is developed by EA. They showed some Borderlands 3 stuff. So yeah, just in general, they showed Psychonauts, which I'm sure there's plenty of people that are interested in that type of stuff. Yeah, so they showed a bunch of stuff here. They showed, of course, the new Age of Empires Definitive Edition, which is coming to PC, which looks great. They showed a new Dragon Ball game that is a action RPG, so that could be good as well. I am a big Dragon Ball fan, so if they do have a JRPG that's based on Dragon Ball, I will be more interested in giving it a chance than, say, Final Fantasy or Kingdom Hearts and stuff like that. So overall, Microsoft showed a lot of stuff. They didn't show a lot of gameplay, but the stuff that they did show in terms of games, I'm very happy with. So that's why I have Microsoft at number 1. You might think I'm a little bit biased, which is completely fair because compared to some of the stuff that they did show, then of course I do have that bias, plus the fact that Microsoft showed a lot of stuff that I like. Then of course I am a bigger fan of what they showed. So that is it for this episode, guys. I do apologize for me talking so fast. It's just that, like I said, I have pretty much zero time throughout a day. So I pretty much had like 25 minutes to record. And it looks like I am actually at 22 minutes and 40 seconds as of right now. So I pretty much hit my mark. Hopefully you guys did enjoy it, and hopefully you were able to kind of keep track of all the stuff that I was saying. Tomorrow, like I said, I don't have to work, which means I'm going to have a little bit more time to record with a bit more calm, where I'm going to be talking about my top 10. I think I'm going to go with top 10, maybe top 20, but I think I'm going to go with top 10 most anticipated games that were shown at E3, and of course the top 10 worst games or worst moments of E3 2019. So stay tuned for all that stuff, guys. Of course, a lot more stuff coming out with some sports content as well. So definitely subscribe if you're interested. Hit the like button and check us out on the podcast feed, because I have kind of figured out how I'm going to do this. It's just a matter of sitting down and having the time to really put myself onto various podcast feeds. So check that stuff out. Thank you so much for listening, guys, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks, guys.